lesson, we'll be looking at the blend curve and match command. If you'd like to follow along, you can open the file named Blending and Matching Curves in your Chapter 5 directory in your Sample Files folder. The blend curve and match curve commands are somewhat similar, the main difference being the blend curve command actually adds a curve in between two curves, and the match curve forces two existing curves to match and join together. Let's look at the blend curve first. To access the blend curve, we go to Curve, Blend Curves, and the first one we look at is the Quick Curve Blend. If you read the command line, it's walking us right through what to do next. So as you can see from the command line, it's asking us to pick the first curve to blend. With this type of curve blend command, we don't have a ton of different options. Our main options are under continuity, and that's going to be whether the curves are positional, tangent, or have curvature continuity. We'll select tangency and click the first curve and then the second curve. And that just automatically draws a curve that has curvature tangency from this endpoint to this endpoint and this end to this end. Let me do Control-Z to undo that. We'll apply the command again. This time we'll change the continuity from tangency to positional. With positional continuity, all you need is a line that connects the two. So that's why it sort of just draws a chamfer here for us. We undo one more time. And then we'll now draw curvature continuity. And that's curvature continuity. They look somewhat similar to the tangency we just did, but let me show you the difference. Let me choose continuity tangent. I'll click here and here, and you can see a slight difference. And let me zoom in and just kind of show you what's going on. So how this works is tangent continuity, if I switch on the control points, has one control point here after the end point. Let me switch those points off and now turn on the points for curvature continuity. You can see after the end point, there are two control points that control the curve. This gives you a much more accurate curve, but sometimes it can be a little too squared off or a little too tight of a curve. It all depends sort of what you're going for on your project or your design. Let's zoom back out of there. So that's kind of the quick form of the blend curve. The adjustable curve blend is the other option for blended curves. And it works in a similar fashion. You select the first curve and then the second curve. But then what happens is you have some more options. And we can zoom in on this window while we're working. Just like the other version, you can just click on these and switch from positional to tangent to curvature. Also to G3 and G4 curves, and what that does is you'll see it adds 3 and then 4 control points after the endpoint to control that curve. You can also, unlike the previous blend curve command, you can mix. So I could have one end be curvature continuous and the other end just have positional or tangent continuity. I can also flip those control points so the curves will go in the other direction. And I can manually drag these so they're greater or less than. If I don't like the results I have here, if I hold down the Shift key and click on this point, it will make the two handlebars symmetrical. And then as soon as I switch back to these, it overrides that and sends them back to their default settings. So curve blend can be used on sharp angles like that. It can also be used on shallow angles or just joining two curves where you may have a gap. So I'll go ahead and apply the command again. And we can zoom in and take a look at what's going on. We can move the control points if we need to edit this somewhat. And one thing that I really like with this adjustable curve blend over the original one we looked at and also over the match command that we're going to look at is I can actually take this endpoint and drag it back here. So I don't have to attach just to the end of a curve. And then I can pull the curve higher, lower. So I can make some more dramatic changes. And same with this one. I can move this away from the endpoint as well. So I can really kind of influence how this curve is going to happen, the smoothness of it. And if I like that, I can click OK. And then I can take these, select them, and just do a simple trim command. Click on the parts I don't want, and that'll delete them. And then just join these together. me just go ahead and undo that. Get us back to where we were. So that's the blend command. Now let's go ahead and look at the match command. The match command can be found under the curve menu. Go to curve, then curve edit tools, and select match. Now, as I said, the match command doesn't add an additional curve or a third curve in there. What it does is take the two existing curves and modifies them to give you positional, tangent, or curvature continuity at the ends. So let's zoom in here, and following our command line, we'll pick an open-end curve that we want to change. So let's say we want to change this one, and then the one we want to match to is, say, this one. And by default, average is switched off. So what it's doing, the yellow line is the original, and the black line shows us the change that's going to happen. And since we told this curve to match this curve, currently the only change is happening to this curve on the left. If I click average, if we look at the black curve, we'll see that it's forming a nice smooth line, but it has modified the yellow curve slightly from its original to get to this black line, or the preview. I can also click on this box and have the curves join when they're created. And now when I click on them, they're joined into one piece. Between the two, the blended or the match curve, there really is no wrong answer. It really comes down to what happens to work in your particular instance. So I'll do the blend curve. This time I'll select it from under the curve menu, and that's this item here. I'll select the adjustable curve blend, and that's left-clicking on this icon here. Select this curve, and then this curve. Click on them, and you can see I have a nice smooth transition from here to here, as opposed to what happens with the match command. So let me lock this curve so we can see what we had. And then I'll go to curve, curve edit tools, match. Or under the toolbar, I can go into the curve commands and select match curve. And you can see right away the big difference between these two. If I try to average these, if I take average off of there, you can see how much of a difference there is in this curve. Now you still get a nice smooth curve, whether you average or just use one end to do the matching, but it does change your original input. And again, depending on your design or the intent, that may just be too big of a change for what you need. You can apply the blended curve or the match curve to items like this as well. Let's go ahead and apply the match and then the blended curve to this item here. So I'll select from the toolbar. Let's match these first. You can see I get a nice smooth blend here. And let me do the adjustable blended curve here. And again, I get a very nice smooth curve there. Remembering I can edit these endpoints for the blend if I want to have a little more control over where this goes. But for now, let me just stick that right on the end there and hit OK. So you get a nice smooth blend. Let's try the match command on these parts here and see what happens. So I'll match this point to this point. You can see I get a nice swoopy curve here. Or as an alternate, what I could do is apply the adjustable blend curve. Select here, and then here. Now I don't want that result, but what I can do is drag these handles down. And then holding Shift or working one side at a time, I can adjust those curves. I can also hit Trim and Join. And when I hit OK, it's going to get rid of the excess curves here, and it'll join this together. So it gives me a little bit more control over the match. But again, it's up to you. In different situations, you'll find the blend curve is more suitable, and for other situations, you'll find the match curve is more suitable. And this concludes our look at the adjustable blend and the match command.